Hey everyone, welcome. This is the second in our series that I'm calling Nature All Awareness. And in this session, we're going to be talking about the wind. As I mentioned, the idea with all of these classes is that we're practicing something called natural awareness. And it seemed like it was very appropriate to be able to directly correlate that with the natural world around us because it's the essence of this practice. It's the root of natural awareness. So it's also an experiment we're going on together because I'm relying on my practice to show me the way for these sessions. I don't have them all mapped out in advance. They're just going to come together each week through my awareness. But the reason that I've chosen this theme is in the past we've spoken about being mindful, about eating, about walking, about speaking, but not specifically about nature itself. And in general, I think our modern society has lost touch with its core goodness. Through no fault of our own, it's just happened. Either we can't go outside or we don't have time or access, and maybe we just watch it go by very quickly from our car window. So I felt it was time to bring our attention back to that beauty and life force, and maybe overcome the fact that we feel so alienated from it, especially in these times where we have limited movement and we have to be careful about risk of exposure to COVID. So as I mentioned in the last class, we're going to explore nature through its primary elements, the four primary elements: wind, fire, water, and earth. And I've actually sequenced them in this manner for a particular reason. I'm starting with wind or air because it's always present, just like our breath. So I feel it's a very close association with something we use every time we meditate. And then, of course, fire can't exist without wind, and water puts out the fire. And then the final element, you're left with this Mother Earth. So let's dive in. What is wind? Well, maybe some of you know already, but I had to look it up, and it's been a really fascinating trip into the knowledge about this element. So let me tell you what I've learned. The good thing is that wind is everywhere, all the time, even when you don't feel it. Wind or air is never completely still, which certainly reminds me of our minds. They never seem to be still, right? In terms of wind, though, air molecules are always bouncing around and bumping into one another, bumping into all the things around us. And then all of them are colliding, create a force. And that force over a given area creates pressure. And when the heat from the sun gets transferred to the air, it creates areas of low pressure and high pressure. And with the high pressure, just like heat, it moves up. Low pressure comes down. When they meet and combine with the turning of the earth, that's actually what makes wind. So the swirling cycle of heating and cooling and the rotation drives everything from gentle breezes to destructive hurricanes. And as you may have noticed this week, the distinctly LA wind, the Santa Anas, were here and affected all of us. So we'll talk about that a little later in this talk. But for now, let's focus on all the wonderful benefits of wind. The first is that all birds rely on and have mastered the wind. First, just through their adaptation of their bodies. Their bones are hollow. They only have a beak, which acts like a little arrow to help it navigate the wind. It has no bladder, so they have no bladders, so they don't hold any extra weight. And they ride the currents. They're soaring birds like eagles. They rely on the warm currents for lifts, circling within the air to gain altitude and glide out across the landscape. And I know I've seen hawks doing that. They're on Lincoln Boulevard. There are these wonderful hawks just circling in the air. You may know I'm actually a lover of eagles, and every year in the winter I watch the cam that's over the Big Bear nest Eagles mate for life, and so they come back every year and they build a nest. They lay their eggs, the mother lays the eggs, and then they take equal duties in taking care of those eggs and sitting on and waiting till they hatch. And year over year, there's been these dramatic stories. It's just nature in its most primal element, where one year there was a late storm and one of the birds died of hypothermia, and another of the birds, actually little babies, fell out of the nest and hadn't learned to fly yet. And last year, the worst thing happened, none of the eggs hatched. So I just adore watching this in this most primal element. They don't see a camera, they have no idea, they're just living their lives. And to watch them, they're so majestic, fly in over the lake and then land with grace and precision in their nest and feed their young ones. It's addictive. That's all I can say. I will share the link for it because they're building their nest right now. So birds obviously are a huge master of the wind, but their wind is also incredibly beneficial for plants. That's of course how seeds are dispersed and they are able to spread their genetics far and wide. It's also a crucial source, and has been for thousands of years, of energy, whether it's for sails on a boat or captured in windmills and dams to pump water, make electricity, turn giant stones to grind grains, make paper, saw logs, crush ore. And today, wind energy is used to generate a lot of electricity and may even save us from ecological disaster by replacing fossil fuels. So wind is a very, very precious resource. And it also plays a prominent role in literature, in music, and in the religions and cultures around the world. So Michael has spoken a number of times of his practice called the Four Winds, and I asked him to tell me about it, and he wrote back and explained the origin of it, which is really fascinating. He mentioned he participates in the Little Tokyo to Manzanar Spirit Run, organized by a group called the 5,500 Elders Committee, who started the annual 250-mile relay race along the route that the Japanese Americans took during World War II to the concentration camp at Manzanar. This group started in 1992, so it was the 50th anniversary of the march and the 500th anniversary of Columbus. The camps for the Japanese Americans were all built on reservation land near Bishop and Lone Pine in the Eastern Sierras, which is the land of the Paiute Shoshone people. So it's just such a fascinating story to see how these two cultures have blended their traditions to create this wonderful new tradition of the march. And many native tribes actually use this same idea of the four winds or the four directions for their ceremonies. It also is used as an image in terms of a healing wheel or medicine wheel. And I did a little research about it, and one of the tribes that still uses it very, very vigorously today are the Lakota. And so they have this round image, and I'll share it in the references. That's a wheel, and it has four quadrants in it, and there's each a color, and they each represent one of the four directions of the wind. So the yellow stands for the eastern wind, and that of course is where the sun rises and stands for rebirth. The south is the color of white. It stands for the warmth and growing, just like every day. The west is black, where the sun sets, right? So it all follows the natural rhythm of things. And it also sends thunder and rain, so it has to do with water. Nothing can live without water. And then the north, which is red, and it stands for the cold, harsh winds. And it represents discomfort, and they say that if you can face these winds like the buffalo, you will have learned patience and endurance, and represents wisdom. But they also have a fifth direction, which I love and reminds me a bit of our mindfulness practice, called the sacred place, which comes within the souls of men when they realize their relationship and their oneness with the universe and all of its powers. So we often talk about feeling one with nature, and that's what all these talks are about. So I love that idea. And in fact, I'll share the song they sing also in my email. It's quite lovely. So the winds have always been associated with healing and bringing goodness. But as we know, the winds can also bring destruction. Just watching the news this week about another hurricane in Louisiana, and then of course, as we experienced this week with the Santa Anas bringing fire. And I know from just my personal experience, it's so drying that my skin is cracked and my nose and eyes tear. It's very uncomfortable. And I was reminded of a passage from one of my favorite authors, Joan Didion, who wrote in her book of essays called Slouching Towards Bethlehem. She says this about the Santa Anas. They are named for one of the canyons they rush through, and it's like a foehn wind, like those in Austria and Switzerland or the Hamsin of Israel. There are a number of persistent, malevolent winds, perhaps the best known of which are the Mistral of France and the Mediterranean Sirocco. A physicist discovered that during such winds, and 10 to 12 hours before, the air carries an unusually high proportion of positive to negative ions. And what an excess of positive ions does in the simplest of terms is make people unhappy, right? I guess that's why they call them the devil winds. So it's just interesting that across the entire globe, wind seems to have a personality and an important significance to people everywhere. So how does the wind relate to our practice? Well, it's certainly always present and always changing. And just like our breath. And our breath can be calming like a gentle breeze or choppy and forceful when we're agitated. And a wind can also be used as a metaphor, well, that blows our thoughts away as if they were clouds. And of course, as we explored in our class on opposites, the wind brings both life and destruction. It's just part of nature. Also, it takes concentration and focus to bring your attention to something we can't see or touch. It usually makes itself felt through other objects, such as when trees sway or leaves fly. And maybe we can smell it when it brings the fires from far away to our nostrils. But otherwise, it's colorless, odorless, and invisible. Yet it's always there, just like awareness. So focusing on wind or air can bring us into the present moment, where we seem to step outside of our default self-centeredness and concentrate on something as magical and mysterious as the wind. So let me read a couple of quotes about the wind. There are so many, but two that really speak to my love for it is one from the civil rights activist John Lewis, where he writes, "We all live in the same house. We must all be part of the effort to hold down our little house. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, do something about it. Say something. Have the courage, have the backbone, get in the way, and walk with the wind." I love that. And the second actually is a quote from Ecclesiastes, and I think I used it as one of the quotes on my yearbook page. When I graduated from high school, we each had our own page, and I had to pick a quote that resonated for me. And I think I was infatuated with Ernest Hemingway at the time, and The Sun Also Rises. So I picked this quote, and I think, well, incredibly prescient of me. But it says, "One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. The sun also riseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to the place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to its circus. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come thither, they return again." So just summing up the whole concept of nature in that one paragraph, I think. So as I discussed different styles of meditating in the earlier class, we talked about focused, flexible, and natural. Today we're going to do focused awareness, but instead of using breath, we're going to use the wind. And so I'm actually going to put on a soundtrack of beautiful wind recording, and I'll begin the practice just leading us into it, and then I'll ask you to see if you can just bring your attention naturally to the wind. And it may come and go just the way our minds do. It may wander, but come back to the sound. Sound is a wonderful anchor or focus for our meditation. So we can come back to the breath at any time, but see if you can use the sounds of the wind in this meditation that we're about to do. I think you'll find it quite calming and lovely. So thank you very much. And now we'll sit.